So that's the mowing done. We will row it later, either when it dries out or when I get bored with waiting for it to dry out and decide I need to collect it for silage. We'll bale up the hay, stick it with the rest of it, and anything that's still grass I'll stick in the silage bunker. But I would like to have some time at least to collect some of the grass for silage, because we sell that and make digestate, which we can use to fertilise the fields next year, or this year. Okay. Squeak. So I'll definitely clean the mowers because they are done with for the year. Looks nice and clean and green. Hi, doggy. And that one. Dog got bored and went away. Okay. It's anything like a real life dog wanted to bite at the water, probably, because that's a good game. Are you? You hungry? Probably. Oh yeah, have some food. I'll put these away. And this farm we're on square bales because hills and rolling and stuff, although Oxygen David, the map maker, does have a modification to the hedges so that bales can't roll through hedges. They can't go through hedges if they're on the back of a normal flatbed trailer, which caught me by surprise, I think, on Chellington in 17. I was hauling hay bales on a standard flatbed trailer through a hedge, and the tractor went through the hedge and the hitch went through the hedge, and then the first bale hit the edge of the hedge and the entire rig just jumped up in the air because bales can't go through hedges. Which was quite amusing, but that was before my days of streaming, so kind of like all the stuff I did when a kid. If it's not on the internet, it never happened. Okay, we'll take this one back down to the beet field. But the bale lifting wagons that are available, we have one of the Anderson DLC lifters. Because the bales are effectively an image on the back of the trailer until you unload them, you can actually drive those through these hedges. Unless, of course, there's a wall or a fence in the way. See, there are some walls hiding in these hedges. I think the only thing I wish this mod had was AdBlue. I tried to mod it for that, but I couldn't get it to work. So. Because we are running with the DEF mod installed, so everything else. Fent Fabric doesn't need AdBlue because it's an old tractor, so grandfathered in, and the that one, the Lintrack, doesn't, because the engine's too small, so it doesn't trigger the rule. Even my truck does. My truck's quite old. Okay, off we go again. Let's find more beets. So I don't know how many more. These poles are funny. Workers don't like these poles, so they won't drive through them. But they're not really there. So you can. Now I know some people like the realism of poles with collisions, and I'm kind of a split mind on that. Yeah, they get in the way, so it causes problems with workers, because the workers will turn around and only do half the field or get stuck or just a mess. If you're using something like Courseplay, you can program Courseplay to drive around obstacles, but it's still a pain. Getting caught with your sprayer booms on them is a pain. So if they're not really there, that's kind of, it's immersion destroying, but yeah, it's not. Oh, these darn poles in the way again. Which is why I'm of a mixed. Yeah. And they're definitely, you know, it's a feature of British farms, is having these power lines or telephone lines running through fields. I mean, it's enough that we've got the big islands of trees, and we've got one in both of these fields down here, and the biggest field that we own up at the top by the first grass field we cut today. That one has a big island of trees in the middle of it, and workers just don't do half the field because of it, or they get, you know, they reach the island and just stop because, oh, I can't find anywhere to go now. So it's all quite annoying. But sometimes I'll just take the time out to say, well, I'll pretend it's there and I'll drive around it. So when I'm doing unrealistic things, just close your eyes and pretend I'm not doing that. Running out of diesel on this. I figure we've got enough to finish this field off, so I'm not too worried. But, we'll work this thing out. Ooh. Coming up on 12, so we've been streaming what? Almost coming up for 3 hours now. Pretty much all we've done is sugar beets, so I definitely want to spend at least some evenings this week just playing this and getting the field done, just so we can do something else. I don't even know what contracts are out there, but I think I'd like to start next week's episode as handling the grass, picking up the grass that we have in some form or another. Obviously, if it's still grass, we'll get the loading wagon out and start picking up at least one field. And probably field 6, sorry, is our bigger field. Field 3 is quite small, so and field 3's been drying longer as well, so there's that. Field 3 is more likely to become hay. As I said, I don't know. I mean, you look at the temperatures: 22 degrees Celsius air temp, 15 ground temp. That could be absolutely sufficient to dry out that grass before we get to it. So we could end up with a ton of hay, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you looked at what our sheep were eating. 244,000 litres annually. And with potentially another 150-ish, that's only going up. Now we still haven't finished using up all of our first year hay bales. I'm not sure if this map does allow the sheep to eat grass or not. Some of the more recent, the much more recent maps have allowance within the map design that if you're running seasons, cow and sheep troughs will automatically fill with grass. It's hard to tell, obviously, the way we're playing this one, because grass and hay are all one and the same feed category. So if I keep it fully topped up with hay, it's never going to top up with grass. The cow one would be a lot easier because cows eat the best food that you have given them. And that means that if you've given them TMR, they'll eat that in preference to anything else. So you can actually see if the grass from the field is topping up their trough, because it will automatically load into the trough, but they'll never eat it. So you can end up with 100% grass in the cow feed trough after a time, for a map that is suitably set up for it. I did have thoughts of running a small dairy operation on this, but frankly I think we're going full sheep. So the map will support 1,500 sheep given the fields that we have, and that's the goal. And when we're not doing sheep, we're growing crops. So these two fields are going to end up as sunflower fields, I guess. What didn't I do? I didn't turn the cutting tool, digging, shoveling thing on. So we'll try that again. There we go. Which is fine. So, because I was thinking these were going to be, what is it? Cereal crops this year. Not that I'm not too fussed about having cereal crops because we don't use straw. Sheep don't use straw, so any straw we make we just pull up and sell. But obviously we need to rotate cereal crops between other crops. I'm not going to plant sugar beets after every cereal crop. So the current plan is, if I expand the map a bit, our farm is pretty much bottom left side of the map. So field 1 and field 2 were cereal crops last year. Field 2 will be a sugar beet field. Field 1 won't be because it's surrounded quite close by walls and fences, and getting the sugar beet equipment in is going to be a bit of a challenge. So 1 will either be canola or sunflowers. I think definitely canola. And the reason for that is because 5 and 16 are going to benefit more from having canola on than they are from cereal crops, which I thought I was planning to plant. So what we'll do is we'll plant sunflowers on 5 and 16 next year, which means these are going to lie fallow, lie fallow until late spring, or mid-spring, before we can plant the sunflowers. As I said, one was cereal last year, so will be canola or sunflowers this year. Probably canola, because we're going to be doing 5 and 16 as sunflowers. 2 will be sugar beets, because that's following a cereal crop. And no, sugar beets. 2 was sunflowers last year. 2 is going to be a cereal crop next year. So we follow cereals. If we decide to do sugar beets in a field, we'll do cereal, then sugar beet. Sunflowers will always follow sugar beets. But then following cereals, we can either do, as I said, sugar beets or sunflowers or canola. That's the kind of complex thing about seasons, is figuring out what to plant and when. It's not too difficult if you've got if you've got the field info panel thing on, because this will show you previous was a legume, which I believe was beans, and then, or before previous was beans, previous was a root crop. So what I'm pulling up right now is a root crop. If I jumped out and ran over the other side of the tractor, you would see it was fallow, and then probably soybeans. I planted soybeans in the first year, but I am not going to plant beans again. Because of the weather, we almost didn't have adequate time to harvest the soybeans. So soybeans and corn as a harvested grain crop doesn't work very well in this part of England because of the wet fall weather. You can end up just having no time to cut them. Beets and potatoes work well because they can be harvested during the wet. Cereal crops, if you can get them planted in the fall, work very well because the earlier you plant them, the earlier you can harvest them. You can harvest them as early as late summer, and late summer is usually fairly good weather. Early fall is as well, so our sunflowers, our canola and our cereal crops can get harvested very early in the harvest period, when there's A, less chance of rain, and B, if there is rain, it's still going to be lots of time after that that we still have available to harvest. And turned it on a little early there. Missed about 15 litres of beets there. No, 12. Trying to avoid the telephone wires. But the first step, obviously, after the harvest is to plough the field, because this is a root crop, which requires ploughing after it to achieve best yield on the next year. and then put in some oilseed radish, partly to protect the land, the ground, and partly to provide a cheap form of fertilizer. The oilseed radish doesn't use a lot of seed to get to cover an area. It's the most efficient planted crop in the game, but it has no monetary value. It has I can boost your next harvest yield because I'm a fertilizer, and it's cheaper than using solid or liquid fertilizer. So, and since you can't plant anything useful at this point of the year, I strongly advise using oilseed radish if you're playing with seasons, just because of the fertilizer stage, and you can get a field quite seriously fertilized before you even get the crop in the ground in spring, come spring. How are we doing on that? 34, this will take us up to 36. That's good. So 2 more loads and we'll be driving back up to the farm again. I'm thinking we're probably down to 2 truckloads left. So I can save money and just use this equipment to finish this off, and it won't take me long. It'll probably take me an hour to finish off this field. But we're definitely making good progress, which is good. Happy. I'm hearing Mrs. Osa waking up, and it's coming up for lunchtime, so I think we'll do 2 more rows, and we'll call it a stream. So coming week, look out for me on Thursday. I will try and get another session for Ungut's-Heim done, assuming I don't have anything going on at work and I have to work late. That's the only risk of a midday early stream. The stream will run until Mrs. Osa and child return from that, from their dance class. And then next week's Saturday will be a loud stream because we'll have the small kids over. And the small 3-year-old saying, "Am I in that tractor? Am I in that with you?" And then he'll get bored and go do something else, and then he'll come back again. But that's the way of life at the moment. Okay, last row, and we'll take these up to the yard and empty them again. And then once Ungut's-Heim is at a point I call complete, I need to find a new map for that, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because there's the Alpine DLC will probably have been out for about 2 months by the time I get around to that. The rate it's going. So we got we got our harvesting achievement done. We're getting very, very close to completing most of the achievements. I think we got cultivating done last week. I'm not sure though. Fertilizing obviously doesn't take long, because even in the base game you're fertilizing a field twice for every time that you're cultivating or harvesting it or planting it. Might have been planting we did last week. Obviously I can't check the achievements that we have completed overall for the game, but I can check state and stats, because it's per playthrough. So harvested 264 hectares is 100 acres, about 240 something. Fertilised we've done a metric ton, sown we've done tons. Cultivating we're way behind, so yeah, that happened. So it's cultivating that we're short on doing, and obviously because these are root crop fields, we have to plough them, not cultivate them. I don't bother cultivating them again. I think that's cedar. Let's go to garage. That cedar also doesn't need to be cultivated, but I tend to, just because I need the... That's our cedar, and you can sow the fields with no previous cultivating or ploughing, so I don't have to, but I do because I'm trying to work on the achievement, and this farm is the biggest one we have as far as getting those big what am I doing? Folding that up, doing that, backing up, doing the big achievement, game-based achievements. Yeah, we've already done the sheep breeding thing. I haven't done pigs, haven't done cows, haven't done chickens. I think I've chopped down all the trees I need to. So we're pretty much looking at cultivating another 100 hectares. We're about 2/3 of the way into a cultivating achievement. And the other one is contracts. Doing, I think it's 100 contracts, and that one I'm trying to get done on longer time, because the fields are small. There's over 150 of them, and doing fertilizer contracts and harvesting contracts on that map. The fertilizing contracts really don't take long. You can run around a field in a matter of 15-20 minutes at the most, even with my sport equipment, and rack up 4 or 5 contracts per game day, and I'm playing that at a ×5 slot, so 2 hours stream is 1 game day, and we're coming into winter there, so we're probably going to be shorter than a 2-hour stream, just because it's going to be dark, and I don't like working in the dark, just because of light levels on the game. Hey, watch my bright beams of light on the front of my tractor shine on a field. Oh, I didn't. That was bad. Let's try that again. Yeah, it doesn't give you you much to see if we're doing harvesting in the dark or whatever. I will extend the stream slightly into darkness if just to finish a job. Okay, and up we go. Don't do this at home. I really should have a front loader for this job, or a wheel loader for this job. Okay. Try and reverse up the hill and get some over the back. So I don't want use up all the space. Although, as I said, we've probably got, whoops, forwards. I think we've got about 2 more truckloads to get in there, and that should fit at the front here. So that's all good. Right now, I probably need to eat something, and we need to discuss family stuff. So I will say thank you for watching, and I'll be back probably Thursday if I don't have work, or next week Saturday. In the meantime, have a great weekend, and I'm out of here.